Okay, well, welcome back, everybody, to Peace of Living. This is Jason here, and
Allison.
Yay, we're back. So thanks for tuning in. We just wanted to take a couple minutes tonight. It's a Sunday night in July of 2022, and we've been thinking a lot just recently about the church and the culture of the church, and there seems to be a lot of buzz about that right now on social media. Recently, I've started speaking in several different wards out near the school that I teach seminary at, and this story kind of popped up that Allison and I have heard in the past from Elder Renland. It's kind of a metaphorical allegory, I guess, about being in the church and what it means and staying in the church. And we just really have kind of reignited our love for it. And so we kind of wanted to share that story with you tonight, and then just maybe add a few of our own thoughts about, why we choose to stay in the boat. So several years ago, I think it was in 2018, Elder Renland and his wife gave a training to seminary teachers. And in it, he told the story and had us imagine having been capsized in a boat while sailing in the middle of an ocean. And he talks about you're wearing a life preserver and you've been swimming for hours and you can't really tell where you are. But as far as you can tell, you're probably about 18 miles away from shore, which is, if you're swimming in the ocean, that's a lot. And you're getting dehydrated. The more you swim, the more you're getting exhausted. You feel terrible. And you're starting to kind of fear for your life. And finally, in the distance, you hear a small engine. And you kind of get excited. The sound comes towards you, and your hope of rescue soars. And as you look, you see it's just a little fishing boat. And you think, oh, thank heavens, the captain sees you. And he pulls over, the boat stops, and a kindly, weather-beaten fisherman helps you on board. Gratefully, you crawl to a seat in the boat, breathing a sigh of relief. And you can imagine how good that would feel. The fisherman then, you can imagine, holds and hands you a canteen of water and some soda crackers. And after swimming so long in the middle of the ocean and being exhausted, that water and those crackers are amazing. And for a moment there, you start to think, I'm going to make it home. I feel better. I feel so good. And you're so happy to be on this boat. And then as soon as your body starts feeling a bit better and you start to feel more normal, you kind of take some notice of where you really are and who you're really with. And you pay attention to things like the water in the canteen is not your favorite LaCroix or Waterloo, right? But it's more of just stale canteen water. And the crackers are also a little stale. And you also notice that the sweatband on the captain's hat is a little stained. He's even a little hard of hearing. You also note that the boat is pretty well used. There's dents in the side, maybe even some rust starting to appear. The paint's chipping off. And you also notice that when the fisherman relaxes his grip on the rudder, the boat definitely pulls to the right, which means he has to keep a grip on this thing the whole time. You notice these things and they start to just consume you. You just worry about them and you kind of start to think, oh my gosh, I don't know if this boat can actually get me home. I don't know if this boat is actually going to provide safety, the safety that I'm seeking. You kind of talk to the captain and you say, hey, you aware of the dents and the peeling paint and the condition of this boat? And to your astonishment, the captain responds and says, no, I'm kind of not. I take this route every day to and from the destination, and without fail, I get to my destination every single time. I've been doing it for a long time. Well, that doesn't sit well with you. And so eventually you decide, I got to get off this boat. There's no way we're going to make it to the destination. The paint's peeling. The dents are there. The crackers are not what I wanted. I'm looking for croissants and for lunch meat. I don't want these crackers anymore. I don't want this stale water. Let me off the boat. And so the captain does. The captain slowly and a little sadly helps you back into the ocean. Now, that's kind of a metaphor Obviously, it's a metaphor. The boat represents the church, and the fisherman represents who serve in the church. You can think of like the sole purpose of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is not to be the destination itself. The purpose of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a vehicle to assist in Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ's work in getting us home, in getting us to our destination, in helping us become like our heavenly parents. And that vehicle is maybe not going to be the most luxurious thing all the time. There are probably going to be dents. There are dents. You can see that every day. There's going to be some peeling paint. It's maybe not going to be the most fancy thing. But the thing about that boat or that bus or whatever you want to call it, that vehicle, is it always gets us home. Like inevitably, if we stay on that boat or stay on that bus or whatever, it's going to get us home. Elder Renlund said, every member of the church needs his or her own witness of the truthfulness of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the importance of walking with Jesus daily by following his words, by reading his words, and by living them. And then he says, without that conversion, including a mighty change of heart, people may begin to focus on the metaphorical soda crackers and chipped paint. I just really love that story and thought it'd be worth sharing because the reality is that there just is no other boat coming. We can get back into the water and there might, the captain's not going to stop us. If you want to get back in the water and try swimming, you can. But the truth is there just isn't any other boat that can get us to where we're wanting to go. There's imitations. We know all of that. And it might look tempting or appealing on the surface. But the irony is that sometimes it is the dented peeling paint, stale crackers, and canteen water that, while maybe not what we expected all the time, that will get us to our destination.
I just want to point out that the reason why we wanted to talk about this, or at least one of the reasons, is that, well, we've had friends and family and people that we've known that have left the boat, so to speak, they've kind of just said they're done with church for now or forever, whatever way they want to go. And I want it to be absolutely clear from anybody that's listening to this that our job is not to pass judgment on anybody that has left the boat or the church in this case, or is questioning or doubting or having a hard time, because we get it. Like, everybody kind of goes on the path differently, right? We all have our different spiritual paths and journeys, whatever you want to call them. But more than anything, so this is not meant to be like a judgmental thing about like, if you would all just overlook all of the flaws, that's the key here. Like, we want to bear testimony of the positives, and kind of echoing what a girl said on social media recently. This went viral in the past week or so. Yeah. So shout out to Sabrina Phillips Jones. Your post got shared 1 million times. I don't actually know how many times, but many.
It was a lot.
The original post has 79,000 likes on it, and so I would imagine it got shared around quite a bit. So she says, and this is a little bit long of a quote, but it's worth it. She's got some great thoughts. She says, "My thoughts on church culture and why I stay. With the anonymous question trend going on right now," so on Instagram, just interjecting here to say that that's a new thing that people are doing in their stories, is answering anonymous questions. She says, "I've been reading a lot of people answering questions about why they have left the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm so grateful to these people who have been vulnerable in sharing their hearts. I learned so much from them of things not to do and feel pretty well educated on unhelpful, hurtful cultural beliefs that I hope to help change going forward. But I'm afraid that a message is spreading that church culture sucks. And who would want to be part of an organization full of mean, judgmental, small-minded people? I actually think the culture is so much better than we give it credit for, but the stories of bad bishops or the mean lady in Relief Society are getting shouted from the rooftops. Don't get me wrong, let's bring it up so that change can happen, but let's not drown out the good. There is so much good. Let's talk more about youth getting together to pull weeds for widows in their free time. Let's talk about the miracle of ministering to have a support system no matter where we go in the world. Let's talk about prayer and how it heals us and connects us to heaven. Let's talk about how our families can be together forever. Let's talk about the power and protection of covenants. This is my favorite. Let's talk about Jesus, his strength and love and power he gives us. I choose to stay not because I'm brainwashed, not because I'm worried what people would think if I don't go, or because I'm afraid of sin or just want blessings for being obedient. Not that obedience and blessings work like a vending machine, but sometimes we make it sound that way. I stay an active member of the church because I want to be. Being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ fills my soul with love and purpose. My spirituality connects me to heaven, and it makes me indescribably happy. There are plenty of cultural beliefs and judgmental tendencies among members that I hate, but my spirituality is between me and God, and I know this is his church, because by their fruits shall ye know them, and the fruits I've experienced make my life as sweet as can be, despite and maybe especially during hard times. So I stay. And if you've left, I love you. I promise I don't judge or even think about what you wear or what you drink. Tell me about your time at the nightclub, or if you're gay, tell me all about your partner. I want to know you and love you for you. I genuinely want you to live your life in a way that makes you feel whole. I pray for your healing because I know leaving isn't easy. All I feel is love. So that's the end of her quote there. And I think that's so well worded, just in a normal way, from somebody it sounds like she just gets it, you know?
Yeah.
Like it comes from a perspective of, hey, I understand. I understand why you would leave. That's fine. I also choose to see the good. And I love that aspect of it, because it's not so much like, just overlook the flaws, but it's, hey, no, look, there is so much good that comes from this church, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, there's going to be the bad parts too, because we're human.
Surprise.
I know. And I don't know, maybe this is an advantage that I have, because I am one of those people who I feel like I am almost hyper aware of my own flaws, to the point where I can't even like think about other people's flaws, because I'm so consumed with the things that I do wrong on a daily basis. And so maybe that's a good and a bad thing, but it makes me more forgiving of those who fall short, which is most of the time me. So I guess I don't want to hold people to a standard that I myself can't reach. So
yeah, me too. And I really like that post, and I've seen a lot of people, a lot of former students especially, repost that, and which has been really cool. And I've loved seeing people just stand up and say, look, I do choose to stay, and here's why. And yeah, it's not perfect. And I don't think that's a fair thing to put on the church as an organization, or its members, or its leaders. Like, we are all volunteers in this church. This is not our full-time thing. We're all just putting in the time and doing the best that we can. And
sometimes our best is not that good, but it's
and let's, and Jesus, like, I mean, he just asks us for what we have, like, with going back to the story of the fish and bread, right? Like feeding the 5,000. He just, well, what do you have? Well, I have these 5 loaves and I have these 2 fishes. Great. Well, let me take them. I'll bless them and I'll multiply them until you're fed. And I can absolutely testify that while the feeding may not be the bread or the fish or the water or the crackers or whatever that I've expected or wanted, over the course of years of intentionally putting effort into participating and trying my best to live the covenants I've made with God, I've been fed by the dented, peeling boat ship. And there's no other way to explain that feeding can come from that other than it's true. It really is. This is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It really does. Like, just because the ship is dented and peeling at times, or bishops say this, or young men's leaders, or someone texted, or the other girls in the young women's group were mean or whatever. I get it. you're going to get that anywhere because we're human. We never promised that, we're going to be perfect, and that'd be dumb anyway. We're here to improve and become like Jesus Christ together. But just because those things happen does not take away from the fact that there is power and authority given and restored by God to do his work in this church. It does not change the fact, like Sabrina said, that families can be together forever through his power. It does not change the fact that we are led by a prophet, just like Moses or Abraham or Noah or whoever that receives guidance from God for these last days. It just doesn't change any of that. And I feel that the church, as an organization or a culture, whatever you want to say, does get unfairly treated at times, like all the time, like since day one. I guess what I'm trying to say is that even though it's, the culture even is treated unfairly, we're just people, like, trying to do our best. And I choose to believe that people really are trying to do their best. And like Allie said, imagine, if we took the Christ-like example and just extended mercy and forgiveness in every direction and just assumed that member or not, active or not, doesn't matter, that we're just trying our best, and that there's people progress at their own pace or they go on their own path or whatever, but none of us are, more important than the other. And the culture of the church, for me, is that dented ship, man, has blessed my life like nothing else has.
Well, and we talked about this earlier today, today being Sunday, we're always talking about what we learn in church and everything, and just the power of doctrine, which is, it's what we believe in, right? Like, my faith is not based off my bishop or my Relief Society leaders or any of my neighbors. I love them. I respect them. And I think they're really great people doing their best, and they do great things. But that's, if one of them were to throw in the towel tomorrow and say, I'm done with church, or this was all a sham and I never meant any of it, I'd be like, okay, well, it doesn't change the truth that I believe in. And when I can anchor everything in the doctrine of Jesus Christ and his gospel, then that to me is that solid ground when everything else is shifting, because everything that we do in the church should point to Jesus, should make us more like Jesus. And guess what? The deficiencies and the weaknesses of all of us, that's all part of it. Like, it's not like God is saying, oh no, they messed it up again. Like he wasn't supposed to say that. She's going off script here. Like he knew exactly what he was doing when he told us, I want you to gather together weekly for these meetings, because that is all part of it. Yeah. He wants us to be with different people of different backgrounds and thoughts and experiences. He wants us to learn and grow and be in uncomfortable situations, quite frankly, because that's how we grow and improve as human beings and as his children. But yeah, so I just always go back to what are just the plain truths that I know, because I can say, well, I don't really feel like going to church today because I feel like so-and-so doesn't like me, or I just feel uncomfortable. I feel like people are judging me. I feel like I'm not a good mom and I'm embarrassed, whatever, right? Like those could be my excuses. Sure. But if I think about the why of church, why does God want me to go? We partake of the sacrament to remind us of Jesus Christ and his atoning sacrifice, and of the special covenants and promises that we made with him to always remember him and to take his name upon us and to keep his commandments. And by going and partaking of that ordinance weekly, I strengthen my spirit, and I need that. And Satan, let's not forget his role in this, right? We need to give him a lot of credit here, because he does a good job of fanning those flames of discontent and of contention. Frankly, like that is his bread and butter. So if he can get you to see only the flaws and just pour lemon juice on your paper cuts, with letting all the little things creep up and annoy you, then you can lose sight of the why behind everything that we're doing with the church. And so it's kind of a long-winded way of saying this, but I don't want to oversimplify anybody's experience and just think like, oh, well, I have all the answers to your problems right here. You just need to do this. Because I get that wounds can run deep and your story is probably different than mine. And if I had been in your shoes, maybe I would feel slightly differently. It'd be harder for me to feel the way that I feel. But I really do challenge anybody who's struggling with church to just live and focus on the doctrine, the pure truths, like God is our loving Heavenly Father. We believe in the Godhead, that it's Heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Ghost. And they each have separate roles, right? And the Holy Ghost can help us and guide us. And someday we will all be resurrected and live again. That's an amazing truth right there, right?
Yeah,
like I owe it to
incredible.
Jesus to go to church purely just for that, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, it's the Sunday school answers, right? Read your scriptures and say your prayers. Oh, you should share what you read about prayer, I think.
So we had a training with President Lund of the General Young Men's Presidency recently, and he was talking to us and kind of just giving us some like interesting anecdotes about, different findings through research that the church has done. And one of the more recent studies that they have conducted was with a group of 500. Now, I don't want to be quoted on this. I haven't actually read the research myself. I just want to put that disclaimer out there. This is just, I'm hearing this from firsthand, but I'm not reading this.
It doesn't have the figures, right?
They don't have the figures. So anyway, just take that for what it's worth.
But the principle is the same.
So they did a study of a significant number. I want to say it was 500 people who had left the church and then come back. And many of them had left for a lot of the many standard reasons that you see and hear about, especially on social media today. All of them, 500 came back. And so the church was, wanting to know why. And while all of them had, varying answers, many of them kind of had, similar answers they could lump into, 4 or 5 different categories. But one interesting response that every single person of that 500 person study or sample size noted was that they came back after they had started to pray again. And which really struck me, like every single person said that when they started praying again, it was inevitable that they came back to activity in the church, full activity in the church. We could make that a whole other podcast sometime about the power of prayer, but it's something that I don't think that we really properly estimate, as maybe Michael Scott would say. We kind of just underestimate the power of prayer, and we kind of just like gloss over it, like, because we just get into our routines of, we say it in the morning or night or, over our food, especially because our food has got to be poisonous. Anyway, I just think that was just so powerful. Like God is just so eager to speak to us. And like Allie said, there could be so many reasons to find faults with the dents. And the irony there that Satan is so good at is that the very things that we at one point had praised and cherished, that water and those crackers that had nourished us and given us life and hope and happiness, Satan's so good at helping us or having us just look at those things, but from a different angle and say, yeah, but you know what? This isn't exactly the water I wanted or expected, or the crackers are they're a little stale, or the captain of this boat is a little old, and maybe he's having to hold on to the rudder a little too hard, or whatever. And we end up cursing the very things that we at one point had praised. Allie and I have both seen so many loved ones and friends through tears bear their testimony at their mission homecoming or farewell, or at their, sealing in the temple, only to later, be lowered off the boat because of these things. And I just thought that was so powerful that, just even when we simply just start trying to talk to our Father in heaven, that something changes in us, because we're opening that line of communication again. And that no matter what we've done, or even if we're still, well, to give you another metaphor, I think we've maybe shared this before, but I love it. This actually comes from Allie. So stop me if I'm wrong, but there was a student long ago that gave this metaphor to Allie when she was teaching. And they were talking about questions and different things about the church or the gospel of Jesus Christ and the doctrine. And, kind of described it as like a puzzle. And, if you've done a puzzle before, usually start, with the edges, right? Unless you're like our son who just starts in the middle and works his way out. But usually start with the edges of the puzzle. And because, it's pretty simple. And that's maybe some like the basic simple doctrines that we believe, right? And, as you're working on a puzzle, you kind of just learn to fit things together and you understand where it goes. But inevitably, when you're working on a puzzle, you're going to come across a piece, two pieces, several pieces that you just can't figure out how they fit. They look like they should go right there. And you might even try to like force it, and you've all done that. But like the corner kind of sticks up and you're like, no, it doesn't go there. And so of course you just throw out the puzzle, right? You just throw it out. It must be a bad puzzle. No, that's dumb. It's not a bad puzzle, right? Unless you maybe got it at the dollar store or something. But this is a good puzzle. And so you don't throw it away. You just set it aside. And then you don't walk away from the puzzle. You keep working on the rest of it. And as you work on the rest of it, inevitably, you'll see where that puzzle piece goes. But this is a big puzzle. I mean, it might take... There are some things that like Allie and I've talked, we can talk more about this in their time, but when we talk about things like polygamy and like stuff like that, like I feel at peace with it now, but it took a long time to kind of like get to that point where I feel like I had a sound understanding and my faith in Jesus Christ was strong enough to say like, look, I don't understand all of this, but I know that everything's going to be okay. But that took a while. That puzzle piece I had to kind of like set aside for a minute and work on the rest of the puzzle. But eventually, as I worked on the rest of the puzzle, that piece became more clear and I could put it in and say, oh, well, it goes right here. Of course, should I have seen that before? I don't know, but it seems obvious. But at that point, I just couldn't see it. And so I guess what I'm trying to say here is just that Satan will make you want to throw out the puzzle or get off the boat or whatever. The truth is that for me, like this has blessed my life. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm grateful for the quirks of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm grateful that we're not like the rest of the world. That's a sign that we're doing things right. You look at the Old Testament, and anytime the people of the covenant of Israel, the people that were supposed to be letting God prevail, anytime they said, no way, I'm not going to let God prevail, I'm going to let my own king or my own other gods prevail in my life, that's when they were conquered and decimated and eventually scattered every single time. And it started when they were, when they basically said, we just want to be like everybody else. Let's get a king like all the other nations. The moment we say like, we just want to be like the whole world, like, let's just blend in and not be different. Let's not dress different, speak different, drink, eat, whatever. Sundays are different. We just want to be like everybody else. We know it's coming. It's scattering, it's decimation, and it's not going to be that lasting, maybe momentary happiness or pleasure, but not the lasting happiness and joy that comes from the basic pure doctrine of Jesus Christ.
So if you're listening to this and you are one of those people who is not currently active in the church or are not religious at all, maybe if you've listened to this whole thing and you're not religious at all, bless you. Like you're a kind person. So two things. I feel it's really important that our friends, because we do have very dear friends, many of them who are not currently active in the church or have just left entirely. We want you to know we genuinely and sincerely love you, and we're not judging you. And we would love to have any conversations that you're willing to have, but we would never force this on anybody. And please don't think that our friendship with you is contingent upon your activity in the church, because it's not. We we love you no matter what. And we just respect whatever you're going through right now. And so please don't feel threatened by what we said. We are very passionate about our beliefs, honestly, but we hope that doesn't come across as being not compassionate, I guess, about what others are going through. So
we would love to have more conversations.
Yeah. That's why we're doing this, is we just want to share our side of things, and would love to hear other people's side of their story, you know?
Absolutely. Like, please, like, talk to us. Like, please, you feel differently. Like, let's chat. Like,
we're not conversations.
Absolutely. Anytime that, you know, the church is attacked, or I see friends like mocking the church or saying things about it, that hurts, because that's me.
I think mutual respect is important. Wherever we are, that we respect each other. Like, I'm not, in the same way that I wouldn't attack somebody for leaving the church or believing differently, I would hope that that same courtesy gets extended to me for the beliefs that I hold very dear to my heart. And that's been some of our best relationships, as we've had friends that have moved on to other beliefs, that we have this mutual respect for each other and where we are in a spiritual sense or otherwise. And that, I think, is the goal, right? Because we may not always be on the same page, but hopefully we can just love and respect each other no matter what. And if I could issue a challenge to close out with, I want to circle back to the prayer thing, and we'll maybe do a podcast about that another time, but
yeah.
You know, and this is what I love about this is totally a private thing. You're not accountable to me or Jason or anybody else. But if you're questioning, if you're going through a hard time, just go somewhere private and be quiet for a minute, or as long as you can, and just out loud say your thoughts and feelings and direct them to heaven, to God, to whoever you believe. And I promise that if you do that, especially if you make a habit out of it, you're going to feel something. Like, you'll know that you aren't alone. No matter what you're going through, you're not alone. And that's the most important thing that I think we want to communicate with this podcast episode, is we believe in a loving Father in heaven who is aware of all of his children. And wherever you are in that belief, ultimately, please know that you're not alone. And if nothing else, we are here for you. If you need us and we can help you in any way, we would want any listener, our friends and families, to know that we will be there for you with whatever you need.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hopefully this helped you in some way, but until next time, we'll see you.
Bye.